Tracy Frans is one of my business partners and somebody that I've been following for the last year. And I'm like, man, she does business differently. Who did she learn from? Like, she is very laser focused on who she does business, 6-time icon agent. So I'm going to pass it to Tracy so Tracy can introduce Hank.
Thank you, Miss Tanya. And, we were rolling in the new year and it was all about less stress, more success. And how do we get more in 2024? And, we've really been trying to bring some powerful people in just to really expand you guys and, to just bring that energy and to create more of a simple pattern on creating that success. And 6 years ago, April means a lot to me because 19 years ago, I got licensed for about 15 years. I was only as good as my last transaction. Our industry is so complex. There's so many things out there where 6 years ago, I entered into a room in Florida to a stockholders meeting, and there was this guy with this orange hat on this stage. And I go into this room, and first I'm like, all right, hat backwards. Who is this guy? He's the keynote. I mean, who wears a hat backwards as a keynote? I'm in this room, and this guy took the stage, and for the last 6 years, Hank, my life has been changed. It's no longer waking up on January 1st and starting all over. It's no longer getting just, clouded by the busyness of what's in our industry. You have just made it so simple. It's a formula. It's math. Do the formula, you get the results. So last week, I'm celebrating a huge award with our company that puts us in the top 1% out of 96,000 agents. And I'm a 6X icon agent now because of this one formula. And you guys, it's just simple. And it's one of those, you just do it, you take action. And Hank, you just have kept that fire lit. So I'm excited for you to dig in and let everybody know this secret sauce on, cut the noise out and just move forward.
I think you give me way more credit than I deserve, but hey, I'll take it. So at the end of the day, who loves these ladies? And what's the right term these days? Ladies, girls? I mean, what is it? No, I'm going to say something that may rub you the wrong way. There you go. There you go.
Mamas.
So if you look, I think one of their things that they have going for them is their energy. How many of you think that their energy is just awesome? And some of you, if you want to have more success, I'm going to ask that you check your energy. There's a great writer from back in my day of check yourself before you wreck yourself. Some of you may know that poet. And so a little bit of background. By 19, I won a national championship playing hockey. By 22, I had 42 rental properties. By 25, I was bankrupt. Had a kid go through open heart surgery. I've been married almost 20 years, 5 or 6 of which we were in deep marriage therapy because marriage is tough, especially when you're married to me. We've got 3 kids, and I'm still trying to figure all this out. So hopefully I can help you guys save a little bit of stupid tax, and we'll jump right in. Are you guys good with that?
Yeah. And Hank, could you tell us a little bit about, we know you're a huge leader in the company. You have what like 1,200, 1,500 people underneath you that you coach. Can you tell us a little bit about that before you get into your formula?
Yeah, I joined EXP in 2016. I have 1,100 people, a little over 1,100 people in my rev share. It's led to a couple million bucks. And I built that on 5 hours a week. And here's where we're going to start out there. Who likes to bet on here? Anybody? Perfect. Michaela, am I saying your name right? All right. Will you unmute yourself? You like to bet, but you can't figure out Zoom. I mean, we've only been doing this since 2020, right? Now, so some of you, I might have rubbed you right there. It's like, you don't even know Michaela, and you're picking on her a little bit. What I'm doing is my goal is to get you guys off of neutral. You're either going to like me or you're going to hate me, but you'll at least remember me, and that's intentional. So I may drop a dad joke here and there, and some of you will be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that. That's intentional, because when we do that, we can be rememberable. So Michaela, I would like to bet you any amount of money that you want. So I'm going to bet you any day from 2016 until today, I can tell you exactly what I was doing every hour on the hour if it was a work day. So you could say, Hank, April 1st, 2017, I'll bet you any amount of money I can tell you what I did every hour on the hour. Would you like to bet me?
Sure.
Okay. How much do you want to bet?
We'll bet $20.
$20. Perfect. So if you win, I'll pay you double. So pick a date, any date from 2016 until today.
We'll do March 20th, 2018.
So we're going to go back to 2018, and I don't know how to go back to Google that fast. So I'm just clicking away real quick. So what's important about, you said March 18th?
20th.
March 20th. How'd you come up with March 20th? What's important about that date?
The first day of spring, and it's my sister's birthday.
Ah, fantastic. So is your sister older or younger?
Younger.
Younger. Do you like her?
Yeah.
She prettier
Sometimes.
or uglier?
She's
You don't need
pretty.
to answer that. I'm just having fun. So, all right, here we go. Here's what I did. Every hour on the hour, I could defend this all in court. How many of you guys think when I have that sort of confidence, my income is just a math equation based on what I put into my schedule? Who thinks that there's predictability when I can do that? And here's what I'm going to encourage all of you to do. If it's not in your schedule, it doesn't exist. Who's ever heard that term before? I actually learned that in a great class that I used to teach. One of my mentors, Tanya, brought it to me. And that was one of the bold sayings was, if it's not in your schedule, it doesn't exist. Now, this is when I was at the peak of my busyness. Now, how many of you got instant anxiety seeing a schedule like that? It's like, well, I get instant anxiety when I look at your bank account. No, that's not true. There's some of you that I know are loaded and you have way more money than me. Yeah, change the way you look at things and things you look at change. And that was just a season. And how many of you would like to be in a spot where you no longer make decisions based off of money? You make decisions based off what needs to do. So here's what we're going to do. First thing you need to decide is, do you have an income problem? And you might be thinking, well, what do you mean by an income problem? If you're making $50,000 a year right now, you probably have an income problem. And again, no judgment if that's where you're at. I've been there too. Yet the reality is, in today's day and age, $50,000 a year doesn't go very far. Can we all make the agreement on that? So here's what I'm going to ask that you do. What is your income that you choose to make? Meaning, what is your net income? And here's what I mean by this. Who's ever suffered from this? The more money you make, the more money you spend, and the more money you make, the more broke you seem to be, and it never seems to be enough. Who's ever fell into that besides me? So I got sick and tired of trying to out-earn stupid, and I was like, I just keep making more money, but I'm not having any better life. So here's what I'm going to encourage you to do. What is the income number that you need to make each and every year? And as long as you do, you'll be able to achieve everything that you want to achieve in life. Is it 120,000, 180,000, 200,000? Pick a number, and then I'm going to encourage you to freeze your lifestyle. Freeze your lifestyle. Because if you're not careful, that lifestyle can keep going and going and going and going. Once you solve your income problem, then what we have to do is we have to figure out how to solve your cash flow problem. Who besides me has ever had a cash flow problem where all of a sudden your month runs out, or your money runs out before the month runs out? And here's the challenge. When you make decisions based on cash flow, you're usually making different decisions than what you would if you weren't making decisions on cash flow. Would we all agree with that? So for my wife, I remember sitting in therapy and we were 12 minutes in and she's like talking about a $20 shirt that she bought. And I said, Jeff, do you know how much money I make, or we make, is a better way of putting it. Because even though my wife stays at home, I couldn't do what I'm doing without her doing what she does. He goes, no, I think you do pretty well. I go, Jeff, this was like July. I go, we've made 420 grand this year. And this is part of my challenge. And he's like, yeah, we need to move on from this $20 because here's my wife kept moving the goalpost. And write this down. Stop moving the goalpost. She said she'd chill when I had 5 grand in the bank. So I got 5 grand in the bank. Then she said she'd chill when I got 10 grand in the bank. And then it wasn't enough. And it was like never enough. And I was like losing my stuff. And so finally, what we realized was we had to have enough money to make us feel safe, but not so much money that made us feel complacent. And so your amount might be different from ours. For us, it was $50,000 when we had just transactional income, $50,000 sitting in a money market account where we can make longer term decisions, not 30, 60, 90 days out. How many of you would like to never have to worry about that next deal closing? Say aye. I can promise you this, you will show up different when you don't have to worry about that next deal closing. So here's what we do. Once you solve your income problem, for us, we got to make 360 grand a year. So long as we make 360 grand a year, we're able to accomplish everything that we want to accomplish. Anything above 360,000, we'll choose a better life or leveraged income. Have you guys heard some terms I used here? What are the different terms that I've used regarding income? Come on, people. I left a
Leveraged
septic
income.
appointment
Leveraged
to be
income.
here.
Better
What was
life,
it?
better life and leveraged income.
So we got leveraged income, we got transactional income, we got recurring income. Now, most of us that are selling real estate have transactional income or only as good as the next 90 days. That's tough. It is tough because when my son was born and we found out that he had to have open heart surgery, I had 28 listings at the time, and I had to make the choice each and every day whether to show up for my clients or show up to my family because I couldn't do both. Who thinks that was a punch in the gut for me as a husband and as a dad, where I knew that I couldn't do both? And if whatever one I chose, I was going to choose problems that we were creating. So it was at that moment, I made the decision at some point in my life, I'm not going to have to show up for money. Now, I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know what it was going to take, but I made the decision at some point, I would not have to show up for money. And this was back in 2000, this would have been 2009. It took me over a decade to get there. Now, fast forward, I get punched in the jaw 2 years ago and found out that my father-in-law, who's like my best friend, who lives next door, had to go into hospice. What I did was I decided to take a step back and help him transition. Now we've lost him. It's been about a year now. And I was able to take a step back, walk him through to the rainbow, and my family didn't suffer at all financially. In fact, in that July, we had $70,000 come in with me working 5 hours that whole month. Who would like to be in a spot where when you get punched in the jaw for your family, you can do what you need to do and not worry about making money? So here's what you got to be able to do. You got to decide what it is that you want. Most people don't have clarity on what they want. Here's what my wife and I knew. At 360 grand, we can do pretty much anything we want to do. Not everything, but pretty much anything. And making more than that, we just pay more taxes and a higher lifestyle. It doesn't necessarily make our life any better. So we froze our schedule at 360 grand. Now, here's what happened. I created a schedule that would get the results of 360 grand, and we always made more. Here's why. I created a schedule, then followed that schedule, and I made the pain of not following that schedule greater than the pain of following it. I'm going to repeat that again. I created a schedule that would get the results that we were looking for. Once I created that schedule, I made the pain of not following that schedule greater than the pain of following it. Who would like to know how I did that? An accountability partner. It was my 5-year-old. I'd come home, my 5-year-old would come running up, and who remembers the days, or maybe you're not there yet. Kid comes up, he's so happy to see you. He runs up, gives you a hug, and at 5, he's right at that point where if you're not careful, you're gonna, be on the fetal position because he hit you in the groin. And he'd be like, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." And he goes, "Daddy, did you get your 2 appointments today?" Because back then, if I got 2 appointments a day, 5 days a week, 2 times 5 is 10, 10 times 50 is 500, 500 appointments got me to my 36 transactions. I just knew my math. Here's why. Math versus drama. And so here's what he did. If I said yes, I'd hand him my BlackBerry. Everybody remember BlackBerries? This is how long ago it was. I'd hand him my BlackBerry and he would turn it off because all he wanted was my time and attention. And he would turn that off. And back then I would turn it off for 1 hour. And that was a big deal at the time. And if I said no, here was the script that I gave him. Daddy, what came up today that was more important than mommy and I? Think about that. When your 5-year-old asks you what came up today that was more important than mommy and I, how many of you think I had a tough time when my one job was to get 2 appointments a day? How many of you think I had a tough time telling him what came up that was more important? Because there's always stuff going on, isn't there? And then here's what I did was I fast forwarded how many times I could get away with doing that before really bad stuff happened. How many of you guys know how to future pace? When I met my wife, I was going bankrupt. Who thinks that when she believed in me and she said yes to me, even though I was going bankrupt, I made a vow to myself that I would take care of her, and at some point money wouldn't be an issue. So I know this of myself. If I can't take care of my family, and again, I'm not pushing this on you, I believe in traditional roles where a man should take care of his family, and one of the number one jobs is providing. If I can't provide, I'll let another man come in and take care of my family. And I knew if I wasn't taking care of my family, I would self-sabotage. So another man could come in and do that. And I know some of you aren't of traditional means, and that's okay. I'm just pointing my point of view.
I'm going to say mic drop right there. That's crazy.
Well, and when it's just 2 appointments a day. So here's where it came in. I know if I got my 2 appointments a day, everything else would take care of itself. So once you don't have an income problem, figure out how to solve your cash flow problem and write it down, so you don't keep moving the goalpost. So many people say, well, 10 grand isn't enough. Now I need 15 grand, or, I'm making 120 grand. Well, my life will be better when I'm making 180. At some point, you have to decide what your net life income number is. Now, once you do that, you get to referee your life. Relationships, energy, finances. Write that down. REF. Relationships. How many of you want to build a business based on relationships? Say aye. Next one is energy. If you have the right energy, you'll have all the sex that you want. I'm just seeing if any of you are paying attention. You thought I was going to say success, but if you think that success and sex don't have a lot to do with energy, you're wrong. So find the right relationships, have the right energy, and then you don't have to worry about the finances because you aren't stupid. So here's what you do. How many relationships do you think you can manage? Hey, Gary, good seeing you, by the way. I just put 2 and 2 together. It's been a while. How many relationships can you juggle? By the way, Michaela, you owe me $20, but you're not going to give it to me. You're going to give it to someone that you can be a blessing to. So just randomly, just give that to someone. Are you good with that? And by the way, I'll do a one-on-one call with you if you'd like for that. You can manage about 120 relationships. And here's how I came up with this. Who remembers earlier when I mentioned my old mentor, Dinah Kokoska? She's not old. Well, yeah, she is old. You get what I meant. I was sitting in her office one day and I was scrolling. She took a phone call, so I'm trying to act important. I'm scrolling through Facebook and I saw that someone's dad died. Now, I barely make it through. I think it's been about a month since I cried since my father-in-law died. And yet when I saw that this person's dad died, you know what the extent of my emotion was? A sad face, and then I moved on. Then I saw that someone had a baby, and I was like, oh, hurts. And I thought, what in the world is wrong with me that someone's dad died? And 10 seconds later, I'm hearting someone that just had a baby, and I had no emotional response whatsoever. So I started asking myself, how many relationships can you actually care about? And what I came up with was there was about 120. So now we're going to start talking about a little bit about math. Now, some of this is where I lose some of you. So here's how my simple mind works. Well, if I have 36 A's, every A should be able to refer me a deal in the next 12 months or do a deal with me. How many of you think if you have a true relationship, they all know at least 100 people, and if they're not doing a real estate deal, they can put somebody in a headlock and say, hey, listen, Tracy, you're going to use Hank to do the real estate deal because Hank helped save my marriage and I owe him one. How many of you love getting headlock referrals like that where someone basically forces someone to use you? That's what we're looking for. So here's what I came up with. If you have 36 A's, they will either do a real estate deal with you in the next 12 months or put somebody in a headlock to do a real estate deal with you in the next 12 months every single time. Now, here's how you do that. If you want A's to refer you, you need to help solve their problems. So, which means you need to know what their problems are. And I can promise you this, everybody has some sort of problem in their life. Fair? Who wants to be picked on? Perfect. I saw an iPhone 2. I think your hand came up first. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
What's the problem that you have right now?
I'm not organized enough.
Not organized enough. What does that mean? That's such a vague, like, what does not organized enough mean? Give me a little bit more.
So I currently run 3 businesses with 4 kids, and I have a hard time prioritizing my schedule. Like your schedule gives me anxiety because I can't wrap my head around being able to schedule. I'm literally looking at my day and fitting things in.
Yep. And I know that feeling because when I was selling real estate and in different phases, it was tough to be as rigid as what I am there. So sometimes what you have is you have a scoreboard where I've got to get these tasks done before I go to bed. I'm not sure if I'm going to get it done at 6 o'clock in the morning or if I'm going to get it done at 12 o'clock at night. These things need to get done. And sometimes that's where the schedule shifts a little bit. And it's not so much about every hour on the hour. It's about these things get done every single day. Would you say that's fair, iPhone 2? And do you have a name?
My name's Maggie.
Maggie. So would you say that's fair is it's not so much about organization, it's prioritization and how to get everything done in order to get the outcomes that you're looking for. And I'm just doing simple math here, and I'm not the sharpest pencil in the box. And the reason I wear a hat backwards is I'm going bald and I'm insecure and I don't like being bald and I don't want to go through the surgeries. So that's why I wear my hat backwards. If we look at the math, having 3 jobs, 4 kids, something's got to give. Fair?
Yes,
I have another tattoo right here.
I can't give up the kids. That's not really.
You could. You're just choosing not to. And I know this as a fact because when my son had open heart surgery, there was a family that chose not to take their kid home and left them there. Think about that. Now, some will say, I don't have a choice. I can't give up my kids. Yes, you can. Many people do it. You're choosing not to. And one of the things that we have to do is we have to take responsibility for our choices and not be victims. You will not last with me if you show up as a victim. Now, I was messing with you a little bit. You're not going to give up your kids. You want to choose them. But one thing we may have to do, and here's another tattoo, subtraction leads to multiplication. Most people keep adding more and more and more and more. Another business, another business, another business. I'm going to bet that you might be better off by subtracting out 2 of the businesses and just focusing on one. And I'd be happy to do a one-on-one call for you because I can't properly diagnose with saying what you need to do or what you not need to do. Yet, how many of you guys have noticed how many questions I've asked her already? When she said organization, I didn't all of a sudden start giving prescription. Well, here's what you got to do to be organized. No, I asked questions. And chances are, if her and I choose to do a one-on-one call, I'll ask her questions for the full hour, and I still might not have asked enough questions to be able to start to prescribe. Too many of us are treating symptoms. We aren't treating the actual diagnosis. Let me repeat that again. Too many of us are treating symptoms, not what's actually going on. Had a buddy who's about 50 pounds overweight. It's like, dude, you look fat. He goes, what? I go, you look fat. I don't know how else to say it. Now, how many of you guys have friends where you can just talk like that? And he's like, well, and he said F you, and I'm not sure if we're supposed to swear, so I won't. And I was like, well, hey, dude, I care about you. Like at the rate that you're going, you're a walking heart attack, and I'm willing to call out and say to your face what everybody else is thinking. So let's look at why you got fat. How many different diagnoses do you think there can be as to why he's getting fat? Well, some would say, well, you're just eating too much. Maybe not true. Maybe he has a medical condition. Maybe he's drinking too much. Well, why are you drinking too much? My wife's a nag. Well, why is your wife a nag? I mean, you got to keep going on until you get to the actual diagnosis. Once you get to the actual diagnosis, it's easy to go fix it because awareness is transformational in and of itself. Fair or unfair? So here's what you got to become an expert at. Figuring out what problems people have and then helping them fix them. Now, the only way that you can do that is by having them self-discover what's going on. How many of you, 9 times out of 10, know what's wrong with people? You can't just tell them. You got to help them self-discover. So, for example, some of you have stinky breath right now. And how you know this is take your hand like this and go out and lick it. Give it a good lick. Wave it like this and then smell it. Some of you had no idea that your breath was rank. I don't need to do anything else. All I had to do is help you get awareness that your breath stinks. Now you know I need to go floss my teeth. I need to go brush my tongue. I need to go do all the things that you need to do. Yet until you had awareness, you didn't know whether or not to fix it. So Maggie, it's Maggie, right?
Correct.
So back to you. I don't think your problem's organization. I think your problem's more prioritization and knowing what it is that you have to do, what can you do, figuring out the math equation and how to put it all together. Would you say that's a more fair assessment, or am I completely off and it is organization?
No, I mean, I would say prioritization for sure.
Because there's never enough.
I view those as going hand in hand, I guess. So
I would disagree with you on that. Now,
I'm sure you'll disagree with me on a lot of things.
What's that?
I'm sure you'll disagree with me on a lot of things.
Well, remember in society when you could agree to disagree with folks? I think we need to bring that back together again, where we can agree to disagree on a topic and we have more in common than what we have different. So here's what I would do with Maggie was I would take the time to properly diagnose. And then what we would do is we'd figure out where we are and then where we need to go and figure out that next pillar post. Here's what I mean by a pillar post. What is the next thing that we need to focus on? And then put our blinders on until we get there. And then once we get there, we take a look up and see what we need to do next. Too many of us are trying to do too many things and trying to solve too many problems at once, where sometimes we just need to go solve one problem and then look up and see where we're at. Fair or unfair? So let's look at this. Everybody has problems in their life. And if you help people solve a problem in their life and they know the way that they can help you is by giving you a real estate deal, how many of you think if you help them solve a real problem, even if it has nothing to do with real estate, they will help you get a real estate deal in the next 12 months? 100%. So here's what I'm going to give you permission to do. Be human. Don't call up. I taught a great class and we only counted contacts if you said, hey, Maggie, do you know anybody looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? And my teeth aren't that white, so I don't get the sparkle. And yet, man, it just doesn't feel good. Now, I know that script will work. So here's what we do instead. 50-25-1. And if I have something tattooed on me, will you guys give me the benefit of the doubt that it works? So here's what 50-25-1 is. This came from me coaching great agents like a Monica Weekly, Jackie Bowman, agents that run a relationship-based business. And we'd all get to around New Year's and be like, oh my gosh, can we do it again? Tracy, you talked about this earlier in the call. Or somebody wants to come and shadow me and I'm thinking to myself, I'm a shit show. I'm not sure what they're going to shadow. Well, you're so successful. And I'm like, I have no idea how I do what I do. And here's how we figured out. We looked back and connected the dots and we got in front of 50 people a day. It's just math. 50 times 365 is 18,000 people. If you get in front of 18,000 people, do you think there's 36 deals within those 18,000 people? Say yes. So what we've got to be able to do is we got to get in front of 50 people a day. Now, if we're on goal, we just need them to see us. If we're off goal, we need to see them and they need to see us, and it needs to be two-way. So if you're on goal, so for example, I joined residential real estate in 2006 in Michigan. Who thinks that was a great time to get into real estate? Not really, especially in Michigan. And to make it worse, I drove a Prius with my face on it. Who thinks that driving Prius in a GM state, you know, Ford's big here, me driving a Prius around, I might as well have been like, something else. And I'm so worried about being canceled these days that I can't say things like Nazi or things like that. But anyways, yet I digressed. So when we look at this, I was driving a Prius around with my face on it. Who thinks that 50 people a day saw me and they're like, who's this guy? I remember one of my past clients, she goes, the first time I saw your car, I was like, yep, I don't need to know that guy. So the first impression on her was a negative one. Remember earlier when I said, I don't need everybody to like me. I need them to be positive, or I needed to either be negative or positive with your perception of me. The first experience with this gal was negative, but she remembered me. So that's the 50. Then what happened was she saw me again and she talked a little crap about me and she said, look at that guy. He's got his face in his car. And the person that she said it to goes, oh, that's Hank. We love Hank. He's a great dad. He's a great volunteer here. And what happened was her perception changed because we could change negative to positive, because when somebody that she respected spoke positive of me, how quickly did that change her opinion of me? 100%. So what we're looking to do is we're looking to make 50 impressions a day, and then we're looking to have 20 contacts. Now, in the old class that I used to teach, a contact was, hey, do you know anybody looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? Well, I don't feel like doing that. Here's what it is for me, an energy exchange. How many of you still shake hands, even after COVID? So when you shake someone's hand, do you feel an energy exchange? Yeah. I mean, there's some times where some dude's like so strong, he's like, hey, little man, and he crushes your hand. It's like, dude, you're an idiot. And then there's other times you like shake a female's hand and you're like, I am married and I just felt something. I need to stay away from you. Now, come on, don't judge. Even if you're married, you're still human and you can't control your first thought. You can't control your second thought. Fair or unfair? Some of you need to be a little bit more honest with yourselves and life will be better. So what happens is you're going to get 20 contacts a day, and that's an energy exchange. On social media, that's you just liking someone's post. That's the 50. You commenting is the 20. Now we're looking to have 5 conversations a day. Here's a conversation where then you can follow up with them, because the key in all of this is follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up. I like to do it on social media. Why? Because they can get to know me as a human being. So my goal is have a 5 where I ask great questions, where I can get them on social media, and then I can follow up by being human and interacting with them. How many of you are getting this so far? You got the 50, which is having people see you, 20, which is the two-way energy exchange. The 5 is a conversation, and then the 1 is this. Who remembers where they were on September 11th? Christopher, where were you, sir? By the way, you look dapper.
Oh, well, thank you. I was on Long Island, about 25 miles from the towers, in a repair shop.
Wait, the towers went down years ago. I was talking last year.
No.
I'm just messing with you, but I'm using this as an example. Do you know how many assumptions we make each and every day? Christopher made an assumption, which is an assumption that all of us made, and is that I was talking about September 11th when the towers went down. Yeah, how many times are we doing that inadvertently where we're making an assumption, but they're talking about something different? So one of the things I'm going to ask all of you to do is ask more clarifying questions. This helped me in marriage therapy. Hey, honey, you need me to go get milk? Do you need dairy milk or almond milk? Which one? Who thinks we had a fight because I picked up the wrong milk and I thought because I picked up milk, I was going to have sex that night? Sorry. We're all adults here, right? So Christopher, you knew where you were on September 11th, and that's what we call a 1, where you have a moment in life that's so powerful, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, but you can remember exactly where you were, what you were doing. I was breaking up concrete at a funeral home. I mean, but I can remember exactly where I was. Here's my goal. Some of you might remember where you were when we had this call. What was going on before it? How this clicked with you. How the simple concept of 50-25-1, 5 or 6 years later, like with Tracy, just gave you the confidence in the math equation, where if I just do 50-25-1 each and every day, my business can look completely different. If you can have one powerful conversation a day where you can remember where you were, know this, every single person knows 100 people. So when Tracy told Tanya about Hank, instantly I had credibility because of how Tracy spoke to me. Tracy and Tanya, will you come off mute?
Yeah. No, 100%, 100%.
So Tanya, did you have any doubts that I was going to be anything short of awesome the way that Tracy talked about me?
No, because I know Tracy, she has really good discernment and she's successful. So when she's like, this guy helped me, I'm like, I got to know that guy. And then I messaged you and we had a personal call.
And here's what you're looking for. How many would rather have referrals than leads? Because of that referral, now I'm basing everything off of their relationship currency, and all I got to do is not screw it up. So when you have 365 powerful conversations where people can remember where they were when they had the conversation, you never know. Tracy and I had that powerful conversation 6 years prior. Now, 6 years later, I'm getting an opportunity to speak and pour into 41 of you. And who knows where this could lead 5 or 10 years from now. Some of us are playing too short of a game. Who besides me is playing a long game? See, I'm just crazy enough to think that if I can help a bunch of you make a bunch of money, and then at some point when you made enough money, you're getting bored, and then we can take all that money and go make a big impact in this world. How many of you would like to get to a spot where you no longer have to work for money? You're a little bit bored, like you've got your freedom. You're like, what's next? When my kids graduate high school, I'm going back to work, and we're not going to do it for money. We're going to go do it for a large impact, and we're going to do a ripple throughout the United States that goes into the rest of the world. So here's where we're going with this. If you help 365 people, they all know 100 people. Now you have 36,500 people within arm's reach, and you're more likely to get real estate deals from somebody that you met once than you do your friends and family until you've won them over. It's easier to make a, what's that saying? It's easier to make a stranger a client than a client. Anyways.
It's easier to turn a client into a friend than a friend into a client.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? But anyways, yet I digressed. So here's what we're looking at. If you want a relationship-based business, you got to do 50-25-1 every single day. The first year will be a drag. After the first year, you'll never have to worry about business again as long as you do a good job. Now, here's where most of us get it wrong. Destructive abundance. Destructive abundance. And here's what I mean by that. Who's ever had 5 closings in a week? Here's what happens when you have 5 closings in a week. You're being reactive instead of proactive. You're not doing as good of a job as you could have done if you just had 1 a week. Fair or unfair?
Very fair.
And some of us have different thresholds, but what happens is you don't know your numbers, so you're always saying yes. And when you're saying yes all the time, you're taking on more. And then at some point, your quality ends up hitting a peak, and then it ends up going down. And then Tracy refers Tanya to me, and then Tanya doesn't get the experience. And she's like, Tracy, I don't know. I know you loved Hank, but he wasn't all that great with me. Didn't return the phone calls, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you end up having this in business, which is a roller coaster. Who's ever experienced that? Say aye. So I'm going to give you an example. You need to raise your standards when you have more business coming in than what you can handle. Raise your standards. So for example, who's ever showed a buyer without a pre-approval before? I remember Jeffrey Dahmer called me up once. Hey, Jeffrey Dahmer here. I want to see 123 Main Street, 5 o'clock Friday night. I'm like, sure, I'm there. I show up, get the hair on the back of my neck standing up. Jeffrey doesn't want to see the house. He wanted to see me. He was a little interested. He's like, you're cute. I'm like, you're scary. I'm making it up, but you guys get the point, right? So then next time somebody calls up, you're asking questions. Hey, how did you find the house? Oh, I was walking by, or I'm the nosy neighbor. You start asking qualifying questions. Then you'll get to a point where you only do it if they're pre-approved. And then you get to a point where you only do it if they're pre-approved through your lender. And then you do it to a point where they're only your past clients. Then you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How many of you guys have higher standards to work with buyers today than what you did on day one? Here's what I'm talking about. Keep raising your standards until they become unreasonable. Once they become unreasonable, you can no longer do that. I got to a point where my standards were so high for buyers, I couldn't work with them anymore because I didn't want to work nights and weekends. Make sense? Who thinks that I'm making much more money today because I stopped working with buyers at some point? Yep, because the math only worked where I could only work with so many buyers. The only way that you can understand your math is if you understand input versus output. So let's go back. 36 A's, 96 B's. That's approximately 120 relationships. So here's what I'm going to encourage you to do. Pick your team. How many of you are sports fans? We're going to open this up to Q&A in just a few minutes. If you're a sports fan, for example, hockey, you can have 20 people on your roster. Well, you don't need 20 Conor McGregors, or not Conor McGregor, he's a fighter. Conor McDavid, you get the point. It shows you how much I pay attention to sports now. Yet you have 20 people that can be on your roster. You're going to need some goalies. You're going to need some forwards. You're going to need some defensemen. You need a diverse team. What I want you to do is I want you to look at your top 36 relationships and figure out the team that you need for your next pillar post. Here's why. If you're going to get out of debt, you're probably going to need a different team than if you're going to have a better marriage. Or if you're going to be a better dad. What you got to look is you got to look left, you got to look right, and you got to see if people are going to the same pillar post. Because if they're not going to the same pillar post, they might not be the right relationship for that season. Everybody tracking with me? So ask yourself, what's your next pillar post? Do you have the right teammates around you? And if you don't have the right teammates around you, how do you go and get those teammates? Because I know this, you'll never outgive a giver. Fair or unfair? How many of you never want to owe anybody anything? So if you do something, somebody does something for you, you want to pay them back. And if you have the right people around you, if you help them reach their goals, they're going to help you reach your goals. And if you get to the end of the year and they don't care about the fact that you haven't reached your goals, they might not be the right fit for you because they're a taker. Who can see that I have a math equation for all the results that I want in life? So I figure out what it is that I want. Then I go and figure out the math. Then I create the schedule. Then I follow the schedule and I rinse and repeat and I'm consistent and I get exactly what I'm looking for. So therefore, you got to know what you're looking for. Okay, I threw a lot at you. What I went through is this, what's called a human base. We talked about the 50, we talked about the 20, we talked about the 5, we talked about the 1. We talked about your A's, the 36 and 96. And then we have a pillar post, which is commitment and consistency. And I could spend an hour just on this sheet by itself, but rather than doing that, I've spoken way too much. Let's open it up for some Q&A. Does anybody have any questions?
I have one really quick about tracking. I know we have this flyer and we can send it to everybody. Do you
Yep.
have a tracking form for that? Have you created one?
Yes, I have an old planner. Some of you guys may have known that MAPS coaching used to have a planner. I created that and then I was told to give it back to them. But anyways, I digressed. I have a planner that has 50 boxes on the top of the day. And then it has like a thing where you check it. So I'd be happy to send a sheet of that to you, Tanya, too, where you can send that out, where you can physically mark it off. Literally how this came up was I went to an event once and I put 50 coffee beans in one pocket and I had to talk with 50 people. So every time I did, I just moved one coffee bean to the next pocket. In fact, one time I went up like this. And if somebody comes up to you like this, what are you going to do? They did this and I put a coffee bean in their hand and they go, "What's with a coffee bean?" I said, "I don't know. Got your attention. I need to talk to 50 people a day. You're one of them. And I don't know, maybe it'll sprout some." I mean, it was dumb, but they laughed. You can't say the right thing to the wrong person. You can't say the wrong thing to the right person. So yes, Tanya, we have that. Yeah, I'm going to encourage you to figure out your score sheet. So each and every day, like this is my balance sheet in front of me. It has all my finances. Have something in front of you where you're checking things off because you get that little reward light when you check it off. Hey, I brushed my teeth today. Sometimes we need those simple wins because that's all the wins you're going to get today. I didn't pee myself. When you get older, you'll realize sometimes when you laugh, you pee yourself because, anyways, do more Kegels. Julian, did you have a question?
Yes, sir. I have a quick question, obviously. What do you think is one of the best ways to establish new connections if say you're, maybe a year into the industry or 2 years, you've done some deals, but you're looking to broaden your connection?
Perfect. So broaden the connection for what purpose? For
residential sales, obviously, but like, instead of like, for me, for example, I do cold calling, but sometimes I wonder if my time is beneficial in that direction. Sometimes I feel like I need to make more of a targeted approach, but yeah.
Yep. So I'm going to give you an hour-long answer in like 60 seconds.
Sounds good.
I'm a big fan of the 1-3-5 or GPS. And what it stands for is 1 goal, 3 priorities, 5 strategies. So what's your 1 goal, Julian, for the year?
My 1 goal is to sell 35 homes and make $200,000.
Okay, perfect. Why are you laughing?
I shouldn't laugh because yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah,
Cool.
you're right on track, Mr. Julian. So
Yeah.
yes.
Nice. So here's what you're gonna do. You got 1 goal, which is sell 35 homes, and you got 3 priorities for it. So one of them was cold calling. What's the other 2?
For sale by owners, expireds, and online marketing, basically social media, website, things like that.
Perfect. So those could be priorities or those could be strategies. So what I'm going to look at is for sale by owner, expireds, in cold calling or circle prospecting. I'm going to look at that as a now lead generation. So the priority would be lead generation, and then you'd have 5 strategies, which is for sale by owner, expireds, etc. And you're going to play with this as a moving draft. Another one that you're going to have is you're going to have sphere of influence, because sphere of influence is more like farming than it is hunting. And I think that you need to have a little bit of each. So you could have something that's farming, which is sphere of influence, because you're building for, a year from now, 12 months, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and we have to have a mix of that. So how I would get to know more and more people is I'd go find people who have problems. Okay. So, for example, earlier Maggie said she had a problem with organization. And what I really found was it was prioritization. So then what I might do is I might go find something that helps with prioritization, or moms that are business owners, and be like, hey, Maggie, I met this great person named Tracy, and she has these things for moms that are business owners, and I'd love to connect the two of you. And I know this, if I can help Maggie connect with Tracy, and Tracy already knows me, guess who gets to be the connector there? Me. So as you solve problems, look to give people other opportunities. And I remember once I called up one of my past clients and said, hey, you got any home improvement projects you want to do in the next year? They're like, yeah, we want to tile our bathroom. Perfect. Do you have a tile person? They're like, no. And they said, do you? And I said, I don't, but do you mind if I go and call tile people and narrow it down so I can find you a good one? They're like, no, that'd be awesome. So now I got to go call tile people with a reason. Hey, I got a past client that wants to do tile, and I got to interview people, got to have conversations. And of course they wanted the referral. And then a week later I can follow up and be like, hey, did Christopher get back with you? Are you seeing how if you're the connector, there's lots of conversations that can happen by following up and making sure people did the job. Did they do a great job? Would you refer them again? You should be on the phone all the freaking time talking to people.
Always.
Make sense?
Yes, I appreciate that. I admire you and your structure and things like that. I think for me, in my brain, how I try to work things is like I want structure so badly. So like I love the math part of it because it kind of does give you that formula. So that's huge.
Here's the thing is, I'm not that smart. I do something, I get an outcome that I don't like. I put a new standard in place so that I don't do it again.
Beautiful.
I don't overthink it. Here's my schedule. I follow my schedule. I get to the end of the week and I say, knowing what I know now, what should I say no to based on what I know? So for example, if I have a relationship that needs something, I say yes. And then if after helping that person, that was my relationship, my energy's less, they get a strike. 3 times, I'm no longer in a relationship with them. After 2 times, we're having a conversation. How many of you think you need to protect your energy at a higher level? Mm-hmm. Nobody takes energy from me. My #1 income determiner 3 or 4 years ago, after 3 months of therapy, after talking with John Cheplack, my coach, I decided to fire her as a friend. She goes, what do you mean you're firing me as a friend? I go, you message me 36 times a day. If I have 36 days, everybody messages me once a day, and the average text message takes 1 minute. I can't get anything done. I'm not your husband. I don't need to know every time you do something. Like, stop. It's a thing called boundaries. How many of you have some people around you that don't understand boundaries, and just because you make money off of them doesn't mean that you need to let them through your boundaries? For example, if you're a coaching client of mine, don't message me after 5 o'clock. You know why? Because I'm a workaholic, recovering workaholic. I'd rather deal with you than deal with my kids, because my kids can be little shits. I'm not a great dad, naturally. I don't even like being a dad, but I do it because I want to be a great dad. So I show up, and if you message me after 5 o'clock and you got a problem, it's easier for me to solve your problem than it is to be a dad. Anybody else like that? I think I'm a great dad and I'm a great husband, but it doesn't come naturally, so I have to set boundaries up. How many of you respect the fact that I need you to leave me alone after 5 o'clock? People will actually be inspired by your boundaries, and if they don't like your boundaries, then good. They self-selected that they're not the right fit for you. I swear a little bit. You know why? Because I don't have any hidden agenda. People trust me a little bit more because I do swear a little bit. Some people don't like me because they judge me and they think that they're perfect. And I trust people that swear a little bit more. Now, there's an appropriate time and place, right? I'm a guest here, so I've tried to keep my swearing down because I'm a guest, but I digress. All right, we got 6 more minutes.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Hank. Go ahead, V.
Now, there was a question in the comments, and I think it's kind of relevant to a lot. It says like, hey, husband, wife, how do we count our goals? And one thing I can just vouch for Tracy and I, anytime we have like a we goal, like we, it does not get done, but maybe pivot between like group goals, or like you mentioned, accountability. Maybe how do you move somebody, like even a spouse who's not licensed, into an accountability partner like that? Because obviously you're all working towards the same goal, or even a mom, or you know what I mean, somebody that is your SO to put, you know, the same thing you're putting out.
So there's a lot of different questions there. What was the question there? Was that how do you get your spouse to be your accountability partner, or somebody else to be your accountability partner? What was your question?
If you're going to have a goal individually, is it too much to add somebody on to have like a group goal on it? I guess.
I'm not sure I understand your question. See, I'm not that sharp. I'm not getting it. Can somebody else explain what he's asking?
Well, I think for me too, what helped me with 36 to life was figuring out what I didn't want to do. And I knew, you guys, I suck at driving. I don't want to drive. People that drive with me never want to drive with me again. And so I was like, all right, I need 36 people and I don't want them 40 minutes away. So now I got to find these 36 people that are going to be a 5-minute drive from me. Now, do I want to sell two $250,000 homes, or do I want to sell one $500,000 home? I want to work smarter, not harder. So I knew, all right, I got to be 10 minutes within my household. I want a $500,000 kind of more household, as far as if they're selling or if they're buying, kind of averaging that out. And I don't want to work with negative people. I don't want to work with someone that's, just not exciting to work with. I want to enjoy my experience with them. So I went and I handpicked these 36 people that I know my day is going to be better being around them. And I know helping them, they're going to have a better life. And sometimes at 36, I'm going to have to knock one out. Maybe they got negative energy, or they're not giving me a positive energy back. And so I know someone else new is going to be in my life. But it was the algorithm, Hank, on figuring out who those 36 people are. What do they look like? Where do they work? Where do they sleep? What hobbies are their kids in? And making sure that every day they wake up, that it's like they forgot about who their real estate agent is, and I have to remind them. And in order to remind them, I got to do the 50-25-1. If I do that 50-25-1 every freaking day, 5 days a week, those 36 people. I'm down to like 3 now because I'm on cruise control. But
no, here's the thing: is we still do it because there's other ways that you can get the 50-25-1 done, where it might not be for business, it might be for personal. How many of you guys love Tracy's energy there, and just by her energy, you wanted more of it? And some of you, it might wear you out. I get that too. But back to Brandon's around accountability. There's a couple different ways. You can have accountability where it's with an accountability partner, or you could have accountability where you're both doing the same goal. And if you can master accountability, to me, which is integrity, if you can master that, you can achieve everything that you want to achieve in life. It's just a math equation. For me, I don't need any accountability partners, because once I decide to do something, I'm going to do it because my integrity means something to me, and I'm not a piece of shit. I'm an adult. So if I say I'm going to do something, I need to find out if I'm interested or committed. And it's the first loss that I get, because if I lose something and I find out that it doesn't really bother me, I'm interested, I'm not committed. If I lose and I get ticked off and I'm like, gosh, I needed to show up better, or I need to do something different, that tells me that I'm committed, and then I continue, because too many people are trying to do things that they're interested in. And if you try to do things that you're interested in, you'll never make through doing what you need to do and actually to make it work. Figure out what you're committed to, and then make the pain of not doing it greater than the pain of doing it, which you might need something short term. Like Brandon, the other day, if you didn't do something, I literally have him recorded with his credit card on there. If he didn't do what he needed to do, I was going to charge his credit card $6,000. Who thinks I would have charged his credit card $6,000 if he didn't do that calling session he said he was going to do? And then I needed proof that he did it, so I had him record it. I made the pain of not making those phone calls greater than the pain of doing it. I didn't want the $6,000. I just wanted him to do what he said he was going to do. I also said, Brandon, if you don't do it, then, maybe you're not the type of person I want to run with. I have a standards around who runs with me. If you're cheating on your wife, you're not going to run with me. If you're, not having financial infidelity where you're spending money that you're not supposed to be doing, you're not going to be running with me. If you don't do your taxes on time, you're not going to run with me. well, Hank, I had to get extensions for this reason. No, the point is if you don't know your numbers, you're not running with me. How many of you think that some people think my standards are too high? Maybe. I got one of the best lives of anybody you'll ever meet. You know why? Because 12 years ago, I decided to raise my standards and I didn't keep terps around me, which part of it was me, because at times I was being a twerp. Best way to get a hold of me is on Workplace or Facebook. Not taking on coaching clients right now, not really selling anything. I'm taking the summer off, but we will be selling stuff come fall because I've got more than enough money to make it through the summer, and my kid's senior this year coming up, so we're just going to enjoy it.